Got cordyceps fever after the Season 1 finale of The Last of Us? Well, prepare yourself for Season 2 of the HBO adaptation, because it's bound to be even more of a flashpoint among viewers than the first. Since the 9-episode first season tackled the main events of 2013's The Last of Us video game and the Left Behind DLC, a 2014 side story players could download separately, Season 2 will begin to translate the events of The Last of Us Part 2, the sequel that shambled onto PlayStation in 2020. The cast and creators have offered some clues about what to expect in The Last of Us Season 2. Here's what we know so far. What is The Last of Us Season 2 about? Sorry, but we're not telling you. If you've played The Last of Us Part 2, then you have some idea. If you haven't, spoilers are too baked into the fabric of the story that even extracting certain plot points runs the risk of letting the whole thing slip. It's the equivalent of knowing about the Red Wedding or the Jon Snow twist on Game of Thrones in advance. For context, Naughty Dog, the gaming studio that developed The Last of Us, and Sony Interactive Entertainment, which published the games, doctored the trailers for Part 2 so eager fans wouldn't be able to see the context of certain scenes or which characters were around for the ride. 5 years after their dangerous journey across the post-pandemic United States, Ellie and Joel have settled down in Jackson, Wyoming. The official Part 2 story description read at the time. Living amongst a thriving community of survivors has allowed them peace and stability, despite the constant threat of the infected and other, more desperate survivors. When a violent event disrupts that peace, Ellie embarks on a relentless journey to carry out justice and find closure. As she hunts those responsible one by one, she is confronted with the devastating physical and emotional repercussions of her actions. Showrunners Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann have played coy in interviews when it comes to how exactly they will be adapting the material. Mazin told reporters during a virtual press conference that Season 2 will be different, just as Season 1 remixed the material a bit from the game. Sometimes it will be different radically, and sometimes it will be barely different at all. But it's going to be different, and it will be its own thing, he said. It won't be exactly like the game. It will be the show that Neil and I want to make. In a separate conversation on the official The Last of Us podcast, hosted by original Joel actor Troy Baker, Mazin further elaborated. We will also take advantage of the freedom we have in television that wasn't there in the games, specifically the advantage of changing perspective, he said. So, we will use what we can use in a new medium to tell that story, and we will go through the same process of adaptation. Who will star in the cast of The Last of Us Season 2? Druckmann and Mazin have already confirmed that Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey are returning as Joel and Ellie in Season 2. Some fans pointed out the time jump in between the games as a concern for Ramsey's age, but the creative stated, "We are making it with Bella." Despite what has been said online, Ramsey is now 19 years old, which is the same age as Ellie at the start of The Last of Us Part 2. The only way we would ever consider recasting Bella is if she said, "I don't want to work with you guys anymore," Druckmann added. And even then, we're not sure we would grant her that. We might still force her to come back to Season 2. Caitlin Dever, Booksmart, No One Will Save You, who was previously in the running to play Ellie, has been officially cast as Abby, a crucial character in the events to come. Cautious over story points, HBO released a description that refers to her as a skilled soldier whose black and white view of the world is challenged as she seeks vengeance for those she loved. Young Mazzino, the Emmy-nominated actor from Netflix drama Beef, will play Jesse, described as a pillar of his community who puts everyone else's needs before his own, sometimes at terrible cost. In the games, Jesse is a close friend of Ellie and Jackson. Isabella Merced from Dora in The Lost City of Gold and Transformers: The Last Night will also star as Dina, a freewheeling spirit whose devotion to Ellie will be tested by the brutality of the world they inhabit. Dina is a love interest for Ellie and the ex-girlfriend of Jesse. Fans initially thought they had already met Dina in Season 1, Episode 6, when an unnamed character was caught staring at Ellie in the Jackson Commune's cafeteria. The showrunners added fuel to the theorizing fires by saying, "That doesn't mean that that's Dina. Doesn't mean it's not." There's no concrete answer to this. However, it'll be at least 3, assuming the ratings continue to be just as strong as the first season. Mazin and Druckmann were firm from the jump that they would only adapt the events of the video games and nothing more. In an interview with British GQ, the showrunners confirmed it will take more than one season to adapt Part 2. They didn't say how many precisely. All Mazin would say was, more than one is factually correct. Some of the stuff I'm most excited for in Part 2 are the changes we've discussed and seeing the story come to life again in this other version, Druckmann added. And I think it's exciting because it leans into those feelings you had from the game really heavily in a new way.